The venting myth, a story of two approaches to anger. Maya slammed her office door behind her, her heart pounding like a drum. Another disastrous meeting with the marketing team. They'd completely ignored her carefully prepared presentation, talking over her and dismissing her ideas. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks. She muttered, clenching out her side to call her best friend, Sarah. Across the hall, David had just received an email from his manager criticizing a report he'd spent weeks on. The feedback was harsh, personal, and completely missed the point of his work. He felt that familiar surge of anger, his breathing quickening. "You won't believe what those marketing idiots did today," she began, her voice rising with each sentence. She described every slight in vivid detail, imagining the satisfying crunch of smashing the conference room glass. "I just need to get this anger out of my system," she declared. David, meanwhile, noticed his racing heart and tight chest. Remembering a recent article he'd read, he stepped away from his desk. He sat in his chair, closed his eyes, and took a slow, deep breath in through his nose for 4 counts. He repeated this cycle 5 times. Back on the phone, Maya was still going to say my data was questionable when he didn't even read the appendix. She felt energized by her rant, but strangely more worked up than before. By the time she hung up, she was angrier than when she started, her mind racing with all the things she wished she'd said. Meanwhile, David noticed breathing exercises. The intense physical sensation of anger had begun to fade. The tightness in his chest eased. Instead of reacting emotionally to the critical email, he could now see it objectively. Some points were actually valid. Others were misunderstandings that could be addressed calmly. The next morning, Maya arrived at work still simmering. When Marketing's Jenkins walked by her desk, she couldn't resist a sharp comment about people who don't know how to listen. Jenkins looked stunned, and Maya immediately felt worse. She'd just made an enemy out of someone she'd need to collaborate with next week. David, however, approached his manager with a calm request for a follow-up meeting to discuss the report. Because he'd cooled down, he could articulate his perspective clearly and ask specific questions about the feedback. To his surprise, his manager admitted some comments were too harsh and agreed to revisit certain sections together. Later that week, Maya mentioned to David how frustrated she was with the ongoing tension. "I just vented to Sarah about it for 20 minutes yesterday, but I still feel terrible," she admitted. David shared what he'd learned from recent research. Actually, science says venting might be making it worse. That study from Ohio State found that when people vent anger, they often end up feeling more resentful. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Researchers found that venting gives temporary relief, but actually strengthens the neural pathways for anger, making it easier to get angry next time. Meanwhile, techniques like deep breathing, mindfulness, or just taking a timeout work because they reduce your physiological arousal. That's the key to calming down. He shared how cognitive behavioral approaches had helped him reframe the situation. Instead of thinking, "My manager is out to get me," I asked myself, what part of this feedback is actually useful? The next time Maya faced a frustrating situation, she tried something different. When a colleague took credit for her idea in a meeting, she excused herself to the restroom. There, she practiced the breathing technique David taught her. To her surprise, by the time she returned, she could address the situation calmly rather than exploding. Weeks later, Maya realized something profound. She wasn't just managing her anger better. Her relationships at work were improving too. Without the collateral damage of venting-fueled outbursts, people were more willing to collaborate with her. Her productivity increased because she wasn't wasting energy on resentment. As the research from the University of Arkansas had shown, what people failed to realize is that anger would have dissipated faster had they not vented. Maya discovered that by choosing to breathe instead of vent, she wasn't suppressing her emotions. She was simply giving them space to resolve naturally, without adding fuel to the fire.